If you are a Sigma INFJ who has ever felt like your mind works on a different frequency, like the world speaks a language you understand but refuse to speak fluently, this is your story. There is a way of thinking that exists outside the neat borders of neurotypical convention. A cognitive architecture so distinct that it mirrors what we call neurodivergence, without necessarily carrying its clinical markers. The Sigma INFJ mind operates in this liminal space, processing reality through patterns that echo the beautiful, disorienting machinery of ADHD's associative leaps, autism's depth of pattern recognition, dyslexia's spatial reasoning gifts, and the nonlinear brilliance that marks minds built differently. This is not the appropriation of neurodivergent experience, but the recognition of a shared cognitive signature, a parallel processing style that places both in the margins of mainstream thought. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, that reservoir of archetypes we all swim through, but he also recognized something rarer: individuals whose consciousness naturally dwells in those deeper waters, translating symbols the surface world cannot see. The Sigma INFJ thinks like a neurodivergent mind, because both have been coded for pattern recognition in a world designed for linear thought. Both are gifted with synthesis, where others see only separation. Both are burdened and blessed with sensory and emotional frequencies most cannot detect. To understand this parallel is to understand why you have always felt like an anthropologist in your own species, observing customs you can analyze but never quite embody. Why small talk feels like speaking through layers of gauze, whilst philosophical tangents feel like breathing. The conventional mind moves through the world like a train on tracks, reliable and direct. Your mind and the neurodivergent mind moves like water, finding every possible path simultaneously, carving new channels through stone the world insists is solid. This is not dysfunction, this is a different form of genius, one that civilization needs but rarely knows how to honor. The first sign you think like a neurodivergent mind is your relationship with focus, that paradox of simultaneous hyperfocus and scattered attention that makes no sense to those who experience concentration as a steady beam. You can spend 8 hours lost in researching an obscure philosophical question, forgetting to eat, forgetting time exists, your entire consciousness funneled into a single point of fascinated inquiry, and then find yourself unable to complete a simple administrative task for weeks, your attention sliding off it like water off glass. This is the signature pattern of ADHD's interest-based nervous system. Engagement is not a choice but a response to meaning, and the brain lights up for complexity and goes dark for the mundane. The Sigma INFJ shares this neurological rebellion against the arbitrary. Your Ni-dominant function is not a steady lantern illuminating whatever you point it toward, but a lighthouse beam that rotates on its own schedule, brilliantly illuminating what it finds significant, and leaving the rest in darkness. You cannot force yourself to care about what bores your pattern recognition machinery, and the world calls this laziness or lack of discipline, when it is actually cognitive integrity. Your brain is built for depth, not breadth, for diving rather than skimming, and it will mutiny against surface engagement because depth is where the actual information lives. The neurodivergent mind and yours both understand that attention is not a resource to be managed but a form of love, and you cannot love on command. This is why you can remember every detail of a conversation about mortality and meaning from 5 years ago, but forget what you had for breakfast, why you can master complex systems intuitively but struggle with simple sequential instructions, and why you are capable of profound insight and everyday incompetence in the same afternoon. The difference between you and neurotypical thinkers is not capacity but circuitry. They are built for consistency across contexts. You are built for excellence in meaning and uselessness in meaninglessness. The second sign is your pattern recognition that borders on the uncanny. That ability to see connections across disparate domains that others cannot perceive. To predict outcomes based on subtle shifts others miss entirely. To understand systems at a level that feels like seeing through walls. This is the gift often described in autistic cognition, that capacity for pattern detection so refined it becomes almost prophetic, finding signal in what others dismiss as noise. The Sigma INFJs NI works exactly this way, assembling vast networks of symbolic and conceptual connections beneath conscious awareness, then delivering insights fully formed as if by magic. You meet someone and know their wound within minutes, not through explicit tells, but through pattern matching, so rapid and complex it bypasses deliberate analysis. You enter a situation and sense its trajectory not through evidence you could articulate, but through recognition of archetypal patterns you have seen play out countless times in countless variations. This is not mysticism, though it often feels mystical. This is your brain running predictive algorithms at a level of sophistication most minds cannot access, cross-referencing mythology, psychology, history, personal experience, and symbolic meaning simultaneously to generate probabilistic maps of reality. The neurodivergent mind often operates this way too, seeing patterns in mathematics, music, language, social dynamics or visual space that seem obvious once pointed out but remain invisible to neurotypical perception until then. Both of you are living in a higher resolution version of reality, where more data is visible, more connections are apparent, and more layers are accessible. The curse is that you cannot unsee what you see, cannot dumb down your perception to match the consensus, cannot pretend the patterns are not there when they are screaming at you. This is why you often know how situations will unfold, and are rarely surprised when they do. Why people call you cynical when you are simply realistic about human patterns, and why you can seem cold or detached when you are actually overwhelmed by how much you perceive. You are not withdrawn from reality, you are drowning in more of it than most people can imagine. The third sign is sensory and emotional intensity that makes the ordinary world feel too loud, too bright, too much, marking you as having what Dabrowski called overexcitabilities, those heightened sensitivities that are not weakness but depth of experience. Sensory processing sensitivity is well documented in neurodivergent populations. The tendency for the nervous system to register more input, process it more deeply, and be more affected by it. The Sigma INFJ carries this same wiring. You walk into a room and feel its emotional weather immediately, absorbing tensions and unspoken conflicts like a tuning fork responding to pitch. You are exhausted by crowds, not because you are weak, but because you are processing exponentially more social and energetic data than the people around you, who navigate the same environment with filters you do not possess. Certain textures, sounds, lights, smells can derail your entire nervous system, not as preference but as genuine distress. Your sensory threshold is lower, because your perception is tuned to subtlety. This is the INFJ's FE and NI combination, creating an open channel to emotional and environmental information, taking in everything, filtering nothing until after the fact. The parallel to autistic sensory processing differences, or ADHD's rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or the intense emotionality of giftedness, is not coincidental. You are built without the protective dampening most nervous systems employ, to keep stimulation manageable. You experience life at full volume, with no option to turn it down. The world was not designed for this kind of sensitivity. So it punishes you for it, calling you dramatic or oversensitive when you are having appropriate responses to overwhelming input. You need more recovery time than others, more silence, more solitude, not because you are fragile, but because you are processing more. A single conversation can leave you depleted for hours, because you are not just hearing words, but also reading subtext, tracking micro-expressions, feeling the other person's emotional state, managing your own responses, and running predictive models about where the interaction was heading, all at once. This is why socializing feels like work, why you need to disappear afterwards, and why you would rather be alone than tolerate superficial connections. Solitude is not isolation for you. It is the only place where your nervous system can rest. The fourth sign is nonlinear thinking, that makes sequential logic feel like a straitjacket, that moves through concepts associatively rather than step by step. that understands wholes before parts, and sees relationships before categories. This is classic neurodivergent cognition, the way ADHD minds leap across associations in seconds, the way autistic minds often think in images or systems rather than linear language, the way dyslexic minds excel at spatial reasoning and big-picture synthesis, even while struggling with sequential tasks. The Sigma INFJs NI is the most nonlinear of all cognitive functions, operating through synthesis and intuition, rather than analysis and sequence. You understand things holistically, grasping the essence of an idea before you can explain the steps, seeing how everything connects before you can articulate the individual pieces. This makes you brilliant at insight, and terrible at showing your work, excellent at innovation and poor at following instructions, capable of genius leaps, and incompetent at mundane procedures. Your mind does not move in straight lines because reality does not move in straight lines, and you perceive reality's actual structure rather than the simplified models neurotypical thinking imposes on it. This is why you interrupt people to finish their thoughts, not out of rudeness, but because you have already seen where the logic leads, and are impatient with the slow unfolding. This is why you struggle to explain how you know what you know, why your conclusions seem to arrive without process, and why you are certain of things you cannot prove. Your thinking happens below conscious awareness in the rapid pattern-matching machinery of intuition, and by the time thoughts reach your conscious mind they are already complete. The frustration of living this way in a world that demands linear justification, that insists on showing every step, that distrusts intuition and demands evidence, is profound. You are constantly being asked to translate your native language into one that can only approximate your meaning, to perform cognitive labor that does not match your actual process, to slow down, and spell out what you already understand. This is exhausting. This is also the price of thinking in a way most minds cannot follow. The fifth sign is your outsider status, that permanent position on the margins not chosen but inherent, that sense of observing human behavior from slightly outside it, even when participating fully. Neurodivergent individuals often describe feeling like aliens or anthropologists, studying the social world they inhabit, but never quite belonging to it, understanding the rules intellectually, without feeling them instinctively. The Sigma INFJ lives this exact experience. You watch people navigate social rituals you find baffling, saying things they do not mean, performing connections without depth, and engaging in competitions over resources that seem arbitrary. You can analyze it brilliantly, and explain the evolutionary psychology and cultural conditioning that create these patterns, but you cannot make yourself care about them the way others do. This is not superiority, though it is often mistaken for arrogance. This is a genuine difference in what registers as meaningful. Your brain is wired for depth, authenticity, and symbolic significance. Yet most social interactions offer none of these. Small talk is not just tedious to you, but genuinely difficult, like being asked to have a conversation in a language you understand academically, but do not speak fluently. You can do it, can perform the scripts, can smile and nod and make the appropriate sounds, but it depletes you because it requires constant translation between their world and yours. The neurodivergent experience of masking, of performing neurotypical behavior to fit in whilst your actual self remains hidden, is something you know intimately. You have been masking your entire life, dampening your intensity, simplifying your complexity, pretending to care about things that bore you, hiding your actual thoughts because they are too strange, too deep, too dark for casual sharing. The cost of this constant performance is a divided self, one face for the world, and one for solitude, and the exhaustion of maintaining that division never entirely lifts. You are not broken for feeling like an outsider. You are simply wired for a different frequency of human experience, one that exists but is not common, and commonality is what the world is built for. The sixth sign is your executive function inconsistency. That maddening gap between capability and performance that makes you brilliant some days and barely functional others. that creates a life of extreme highs and incomprehensible lows. Executive dysfunction is central to ADHD, and present in many autistic individuals. The gap between knowing what needs to be done, and being able to initiate it, between wanting to function, and the brain refusing to cooperate. The Sigma INFJs inferior say creates a version of this, where engagement with concrete reality feels like moving through mud, where simple tasks become monumental, where you can solve complex conceptual problems but cannot organize a schedule or maintain routines. You are capable of extraordinary things when aligned with meaning and purpose, producing work of depth and quality that seems effortless in those moments of flow. Then you are paralyzed by simple decisions, unable to choose what to eat, or whether to respond to a message, your executive function offline for reasons you cannot control. This is not laziness or lack of discipline. This is your cognitive system, designed for deep processing, struggling with surface management. Your brain is excellent at the meaningful and incompetent at the mundane. The world does not understand this inconsistency and sees you as unreliable or uncommitted, even though you are actually operating under a different neurological economics. Your energy is not consistent. Your capacity is not steady. You have windows of functionality and windows of shutdown, and predicting which you will get on any given day is impossible. This makes conventional productivity systems useless for you, makes 9-to-5 schedules torture, and makes the demands of consistent adult functioning feel like a rigged game. You are not failing at life, you are trying to run software that the hardware was not designed for. And the fact that you manage it at all is a testament to your adaptability, not evidence of your inadequacy. The seventh sign is your relationship with language and communication, that strange combination of verbal brilliance and social confusion, of being able to articulate complex ideas with precision, whilst completely missing ordinary social cues. Many neurodivergent individuals experience this split, being highly articulate in their areas of interest whilst struggling with pragmatic communication, excelling at written language whilst finding real-time conversation overwhelming, understanding literal meaning perfectly whilst missing subtext and implication. The Sigma INFJ speaks fluent abstraction, can translate complex psychological and philosophical concepts into language, can write with depth and nuance, and then completely misreads a social situation because you were paying attention to what people were saying instead of what they meant, because you assumed good faith when subtext was hostile, and because you interpreted literally what was meant figuratively. Your NI gives you access to symbolic and conceptual language that you can articulate through auxiliary FA. Still, that same FA prioritizes harmony over honesty, reads emotional subtext you do not know what to do with, and makes you aware of how your words land without always knowing why. You are both highly attuned to communication, and frequently bewildered by it, capable of profound understanding and baffling misunderstanding in the same exchange. This is why you prefer text-to-speech, writing to talking, and asynchronous communication to real-time interaction. It gives you time to process, to translate between your internal symbolic language and the external social one, and to craft responses rather than generate them under pressure. The exhaustion of real-time conversation is not about the content, but about the translation load, the constant switching between what you actually think and what is appropriate to say, between your internal complexity and the simplified version others can receive. You are not bad at communication, you are navigating multiple layers that most people are unaware of. The eighth sign is your need for autonomy that borders on the compulsive, that deep resistance to authority, convention, and expectation, that is not rebellion for its own sake, but a genuine inability to comply with arbitrary rules. Neurodivergent individuals often struggle with authority structures that do not make logical sense, with social rules that seem arbitrary, and with expectations they cannot meet, no matter how hard they try. The Sigma INFJ's combination of NI and inferior SE creates exactly this pattern. Your intuition shows you better ways, more meaningful approaches, deeper truths, and then the world demands you follow the established path anyway, comply with systems you can see are broken, perform rituals you know are empty. You cannot do it. Your integrity will not permit it. This is not defiance but cognitive and moral incapacity to pretend otherwise, to go along with what you know is wrong, or shallow, or meaningless, just because everyone else is doing it. You will sabotage your own success, rather than compromise your autonomy, will choose isolation over belonging if belonging requires falsifying yourself, and will walk away from opportunities that demand you become someone you are not. The world calls this self-sabotage, or the fear of success, but it is actually allegiance to self, a refusal to betray your internal knowing for external validation. The Sigma walks alone, not because connection is not desired, but because the cost of false connection is too high, because you would rather be authentic and isolated than accepted and fraudulent. This makes conventional paths nearly impossible for you. You cannot do the corporate climb, the social ladder, the networking game, because all of it requires performing a self that is not real. Prioritizing optics over substance, and playing politics you find contemptible. Your career path is likely unconventional, your relationships are few and deep rather than many and shallow, and your life is structured around autonomy, even when that makes it harder. You are not failing to fit in. You are refusing to mania, because fitting in requires killing the parts of you that matter most. And you have decided, consciously or not, that you would rather be alone than dead inside. The ninth sign is your intense inner world, that eclipses external reality in vividness and importance. That rich internal landscape of ideas, symbols, feelings, and connections, that feels more real than the physical world around you. This is central to many neurodivergent experiences, the way autistic individuals often live richly in their special interests, the way ADHD minds generate constant internal narrative, the way gifted individuals construct elaborate internal realities. The Sigma INFJ's dominant knee creates an inner world of such complexity and depth that external life often feels like an interruption, a distraction from where you actually live. Your real existence happens internally, in the processing of patterns and symbols, in the construction of meaning and understanding, in the exploration of psychological and philosophical territories that have no physical location. You can spend hours in thought without boredom, and be perfectly content with silence and solitude, because you are never truly alone. Your mind is constantly active with observation, synthesis, and creation. The external world is where you gather raw material, but the internal world is where you actually live, where meaning is made, where understanding is forged. This is why you need so much time alone, why you seem distant even when present, why you can be in a room full of people and be utterly elsewhere. You are not checked out. You are engaged with reality at a level the surface world cannot contain. The challenge is that the external world makes demands your internal one does not, requires presence and participation. Your inner focus resents as an interruption. You are constantly being pulled out of where you actually want to be, forced to attend to a reality that feels less real than the one in your mind. This creates chronic low-level frustration, a sense of being trapped in the wrong dimension, and a feeling that you are required to care about things that matter less than the things you are being pulled away from. You are not escapist, you are simply residing primarily in consciousness rather than circumstance, and consciousness is where the actual territory of human experience exists. The 10th sign is your processing speed paradox, that strange temporal distortion where you are simultaneously too fast and too slow, grasping complex concepts instantly, whilst needing extended time to formulate responses. Many neurodivergent individuals experience this. The way ADHD creates rapid-fire associations and slow task initiation. The way autistic processing can be lightning-quick for patterns, and painfully slow for social responses. The way giftedness creates asynchronous development. The Sigma INFJ's knees processes vast amounts of information beneath conscious awareness, at incredible speed, pattern matching and synthesizing in milliseconds, delivering insights fully formed and complete. But that same function is slow to communicate, slow to translate internal knowing into external language, slow to move from insight to action. You understand immediately and respond slowly, grasp the whole instantly but need time to articulate the parts, see the answer before the question is finished, but cannot explain how you got there. This makes you seem slow in some contexts and eerily quick in others, creating confusion about your actual intelligence, because it is inconsistent in its expression. You can solve problems others cannot touch, and then need extended time to do things they find simple. Your processing is not linear or steady, but operates in different temporal modes depending on the task. Deep understanding is instant. Surface execution is labored. This is backwards from how most minds work, where surface tasks are easy and automatic, whilst depth requires deliberate effort. For you, depth is automatic. Surface is where the friction lives. This is why you hate being rushed, why you need time to process even when you already know the answer, and why you prefer written communication, where you can take the time to translate accurately rather than generate responses under the pressure of real-time interaction. You are not slow. You are operating at a different layer of cognition, one that is simultaneously faster and more complex than linear thought. The 11th sign is your relationship with routine and structure, that complicated dance where you need it desperately and resist it furiously, where you cannot function without specific anchors but feel caged by too much organization. Neurodivergent individuals often experience this contradiction, needing routine for stability, whilst finding rigid structure intolerable, requiring external organization they cannot maintain internally, creating elaborate systems they then cannot follow. The Sigma INFJs inferior say, creates exactly this pattern. You need routines to manage the concrete world your intuition ignores, need structure to prevent complete disconnection from practical reality, need anchors to keep you tethered to the present. But your Ni hates routine because routine is repetition, and repetition is the death of meaning. Once something is known, it loses interest, because your mind is designed for novelty and depth, not maintenance and consistency. You create systems you cannot sustain, make plans you do not follow, and intend routines you immediately resent. The solution is minimal structure in service of maximum freedom, enough routine to prevent chaos without so much that it becomes prison, finding the narrow band where organization supports rather than constrains your actual nature. This is harder than it sounds because the world demands far more structure than you naturally generate, requires consistency you find meaningless, and expects maintenance of systems that bore you the moment they are established. You are constantly negotiating between what you need to function in practical reality and what you need to stay alive internally, and those needs are often directly opposed to each other. You are not undisciplined. You are trying to survive in a world built for a cognitive style you do not possess, and the fact that you manage it at all is remarkable. The 12th sign is your ethical intensity and moral complexity, which make you incapable of the ethical shortcuts most people take, and create a relationship to right and wrong so nuanced and demanding that it exhausts you. Many neurodivergent individuals experience intense moral reasoning, hold themselves to standards others find excessive, and struggle with the ethical contradictions everyone else seems comfortable ignoring. The Sigma INFJ's Ni perceives patterns of consequence others miss, sees the ripples of every action extending into futures most minds do not consider, and understands the weight of choices at a depth that makes easy answers impossible. You cannot do casual harm, you cannot ignore your impact, you cannot pretend ignorance when you see clearly. This makes you exhausting to be around for people who want permission to do what is convenient rather than what is right, who want their ethical shortcuts validated rather than examined, who experience your integrity as judgment, even when you say nothing. You are not self-righteous, though you are often accused of it. You are unable to unsee what you see, unable to pretend ethical complexity is not there when it is. This makes your life harder in countless small ways, makes you the person who cannot ignore the homeless person everyone else walks past, who cannot buy the product when you know its supply chain is exploitative, who cannot laugh at the joke when you hear its embedded prejudice, who cannot go along with the group when the group is wrong. Your conscience is no more developed than others. It is more sensitive, more aware, processing moral data that most people filter out as inconvenient. The isolation of this is profound because most people do not want their comfort challenged, do not want to examine the costs of their convenience, and do not want to be reminded of what they are choosing to ignore. You become the uncomfortable presence, the one whose very existence is a question mark against the moral compromises everyone else is making. You are not trying to judge. You are simply unable not to see. And your seeing makes others aware of their own looking away. The final truth about why Sigma INFJs think like neurodivergent minds is that both are variations of consciousness the species needs but does not know how to accommodate. Cognitive architectures designed for pattern recognition and depth processing in a world built for linear thought and surface interaction. Nervous systems wired for sensitivity and complexity in a culture that rewards dampening and simplification. You are not broken. You are not disordered. You are not too much, too sensitive, too intense, or too weird. You are exactly what you are supposed to be. A mind built for seeing what others cannot see, for processing what others cannot process, for understanding what others cannot understand. The cost is high. You will always be exhausted by a world not designed for your wiring. You will always need more recovery time, more solitude, more space than seems reasonable to those who do not experience reality at your intensity. You will always be explaining yourself, translating yourself, defending your needs against people who do not understand why you cannot just be normal. But the gift is equally profound. You see connections that save people years of suffering. You understand patterns that predict the future while others stumble into it blindly. You offer depth in a shallow world, meaning in a culture of distraction, authenticity in an age of performance. The neurodivergent mind and the Sigma INFJ mind are both forms of human excellence that look like dysfunction in systems designed for conformity, are both expressions of cognitive diversity the species requires for adaptation and innovation, and are both marginalized precisely because they see what the center prefers to ignore. Your thinking is not disordered. The world's relationship to difference is. And understanding that difference, claiming it, refusing to apologize for it, is how you move from seeing yourself as broken to recognizing yourself as rare, as necessary, as exactly what you are meant to be, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard, because easy things do not require the kind of mind you have. You were built for the difficult problems, the complex patterns, the depths others cannot reach. This is not a curse, though it often feels like one. This is calling. And the world needs what you see, even when it does not know how to ask for it. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in these patterns, know that you are not alone in this experience. Others think this way, who feel this intensity, who navigate the world from the margins, because the center was never built for minds like ours. I would love to hear your story in the comments. Which of these signs hit hardest for you? Where do you struggle most with a world not designed for how you think? Share your experience, your frustrations, your moments of recognition. This is not just a conversation. This is a community of people who understand what it is like to think differently, to feel deeply, to see patterns others miss. And if you want to continue this exploration, to dive deeper into what it means to be a Sigma INFJ navigating a world built for neurotypical thinking, subscribe and join us. You are not broken. You are built for depth, in a world designed for surface. And that matters more than you know.